What's up, y'all? This is Mike Manzer with another Manzer Faust Productions video, and I wanted to come on here a little impromptu and talk about a loss that we had this past weekend that really kind of shook me and a lot of other people who grew up with this guy's music, the kind of group he was a part of, and how iconic they are. Just kind of took the wind out of me. Kind of unexpected. I don't really know how it happened. I feel like it's going to be a while before we get a cause of death or anything like that. Kind of a guy that lived in a lot of mysterious. There's like a lot of rumors, a lot of like exaggerations, probably. He kind of had to be referred to in hushed tones. A couple of years ago, I might have been scared to make this video because just of all these rumors and kind of, you know, legends and myths about this individual. Back in the day, man, you were afraid to type this dude's name into a search engine. You just heard all this crazy stuff. Oh, he like stabbed a fan to death for wearing a bootleg shirt. He brought like some homemade flamethrower onto like a fucking train to kill some banker or some attorney. I can't remember, but like this guy was just the most intense like punk rock icon you could get, coming out of Japan, which is just like completely redefined like this just punk rock insanity. Um, he would pull from noise, he would pull from obviously hardcore and punk and all that kind of stuff. Um, just all over the place, very like metallic kind of sound to a lot of this stuff as well. Um, Gizm, this just Gizm as a band, just so utterly iconic. And over the past weekend, we lost Sakevi, the vocalist, and pretty much like the mouthpiece of this group. Um, I really have a lot of love for Randy Uchida, who passed away, I believe, early 2000s. I want to say like 2003 or something. I can't remember the exact date. And, that was a big tragic loss. And, this band has kind of gone through a lot of different incarnations. They never played the United States up until the end, like, I believe they had one reunion a few years back with at what was that? I can't remember the festival. It's that huge festival in like Europe that everybody ends up playing. They did like a set there, and I did see it. I was kind of underwhelmed by it. He's not really doing a lot on stage, and the band he had backing him up really didn't do much for me either. I feel like trying to do Randy with a different guitarist who doesn't have the flash, who doesn't have that like kind of unique sound that Randy had. It's hard to emulate that for sure. It's hard to get that vibe. And God bless them. They fucking tried, but it didn't really do much for me. What I thought was cool though is they did have like a live stream kind of thing that I don't know if you can still get that. I remember it was on like some like sketchy website, Pornhub or something like that, that they did during the lockdown, and everybody was going off on that. And then what nobody I don't think would have expected to happen is Relapse to pick these up and finally get them like official reissues. Got the go ahead from Sakevi, um, and just got these out to people. Like a lot of these were never available. I got like a fan club of one of them, and even that was hard to get back in the day. Um, just insane, like that they were able to work together, and Relapse being such like an iconic label and having such like a consumer base, and they'd be getting into a lot of that kind of Japanese hardcore. They did that Zuo discography, which was very cool. I love having that. Um, really giving voice to this kind of, a lot of us like hardcore punk fanatics know a lot of this stuff. We pretty much picked up on it from stuff like Poison Idea and those kind of bands. Let me pull something real quick. Ba, ba, ba. Trying to do this fast is always kind of a pain. God damn. Almost there yet. This is really derailing things, but I want to pull this because it really does fit in with the subject very well. God damn, there it is. All right, so as far as the first place I heard this band, it would be on the Peace compilation put out by R Radical, which I believe is a label associated with Millions of Dead Cops. It's more of like, it's got all this stuff on like nuclear disarmament. I talked about this in my video on compilations. I believe the first one I did of Sample This, which is a series I'm gonna bring back eventually. I just need to get a couple of titles, but yeah, all of them have this iconic artwork. But like, damn man, that's like so cool. And the song is "Endless Blockades," and I feel like a lot of people got their introduction to Gizm through this release. And it's such like a baffling kind of song, like the vocal delivery and the kind of like noises he's making and all that kind of stuff. Like, you got a couple of other Japanese bands on here. You got the Execute as a track on here. That's awesome. But boy, just hearing Gizm for the first time, like, words don't really describe it. It feels otherworldly. And that might get old for some bands after a while, but man, like, they just up the ante every single time you find something new by Gizm. It just like kind of sends you deeper down that rabbit hole. Like, there's just so much going on with this band, so many different ideas, so many different influences, so many different like approaches, and it's all kind of the same kind of theme and same kind of imagery and same kind of like just anger throughout it. So yeah, like right from the fucking get-go, this band was just like blew me away. And so, back in the day, you didn't have a lot of options. You had to get these like kind of fan club pressings, printed up pretty cheap. This one I always loved, Document 1. This is a bunch of compilation and live tracks from 82 to 84. And this has some of my favorite Gizm songs: Death Exclamations, Nervous Corpse, Shoot to Kill, Ob. There's like a whole bunch of them in a row on a live track. These are all taken from various compilations. You got Great Punk Hits, Hardcore Unlawful Assembly, The Punks, Outsider. You got some live version of Punk is Hippies. Just a lot of really, really great shit. I love, like, and just so raw, so chaotic. The Sakevi's vocal delivery goes all over the fucking place, and he's doing all this weird shit throughout. The iconic one everybody talks about, that I have 2 copies of, because like I said, Relapse reissued it. And pretty much both of these are exactly the same. This is Detestation, which, this is. It's pretty much a fan club, so you don't really know where it's coming from. Originally released by Dogma Records. Yeah, it's definitely a grail if I ever get that one. If I have $300, $400 I want to spend. But, happy with the two versions I have. Got this one through Velted Regnub back in the day, who I believe still exists. You got that nice white vinyl, which is weird. Not used to a lot of like fan club stuff coming on colored vinyl. You got all the inserts. You can tell I stuck this on my wall way too many fucking times. Ugh. Punks is Hippies, that crazy kind of. They had this kind of weird, like, Motley Crue kind of vibe happening, but it works. You got Randy looking glammed out as fuck. I love it though. It kind of gives you the wrong idea of what this is gonna sound like if you go by that. But man, all you need is this like crazy artwork from Sakevi. I love a lot of his artwork. I didn't pull records for this, unfortunately, but I could do an entire video on how his art is iconic. And I've actually been thinking about doing a series on different artists: Screaming Mad George, Pusshead, H.R. Geiger. You could really go deep with these guys who would do like album artwork, a Pettibon, like. Yeah, that's definitely a series I gotta get into. And if I do that, definitely gonna bring up Sakevi in that, without a doubt. And yeah, might as well show off the Relapse pressing. Got the Oba strip there, which is unremovable. Kind of pointless, but whatever. The branding on the back, Relapse and Beast Arts, which is Sakevi's kind of imprint. He would release all of his kind of stuff. We have the same poster again. I love that, like, knives with the skulls kind of thing. Kind of want to get that tattooed at one point. This is just on plain black vinyl. It was just cool to get this. Like, I haven't done the comparison yet. I'm surprised I haven't done that. I should probably do that after I do this video. I don't really think there's that big of a difference, though. It's probably the same, master tapes that they were taken from. I mean, maybe the fan club is actually ripped from the vinyl itself. That's probably likely. But yeah, artwork's pretty much the same. It's just great to have this like readily available. I know this was everywhere. It was kind of cool to go into any record store and just find this in droves. They had so many of these pressed up, and it's Relapse for you. They do great work. So yeah, Detestation. It's such like an iconic record. You could pull any of the songs off of this. I don't know why I switched to different versions. It's whatever. But man, there's so many iconic songs. I already talked about like Endless Blockades and how that's kind of like such an interesting like kind of introduction to this band. Because it kind of does take all the different tropes and themes of these early tracks, just kind of filter them through. Got the amazing guitar work, just great riffs throughout this whole thing. Death Agony and Screams, Night Nightmare, the iconic, destroy kind of delivery. Document 1, the ridiculous title, Tear Their Syphilic Vaginas to Pieces. Like, just the kind of vocal delivery on that is really fucking funny to me. Like, it adds all this, like, kind of weird reverb and echo effect, and yeah, Nuclear on Hogs, which is a fucking great song. Anthem. Anthem's pretty funny because it, joke of misunderstanding the kind of English lyrics on some of these, where it sounds like I sold my soul to babies. That's not what he's saying. I'm pretty sure it's Hades, but just this delivery of it is pretty fucking goofy. And a lot of it is English, because kind of broken English kind of stuff. But unlike some of that later, like pogo punk kind of garbage, which I like, but I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of garbage. Uh, Gizm is a lot more serious, a lot more frightening, a lot more intimidating. Like, they were real as fuck. Like, you cannot deny how like brutal this fucking music is. And Randy Uchida would have his other group, RUG, Randy Uchida group, and they were a lot more kind of standard, kind of power metal-y kind of chords. A lot of the riffing on that kind of reminds me of like stuff that would work as like the intro to some crazy like anime show in the 80s. This band really opened up my eyes to Japanese hardcore. I'd heard a few things. I remember I had that Asbestos 7-inch really early on, because that had just come out. So that was really cool. Kind of got me into that kind of crossover-y thrash kind of sound that was coming out of Japan. And if you listen to the earlier Asbestos stuff, they're definitely taking a lot from Gizm. Zuo, another band that was released through Relapse, did their kind of discography. That's another band, they take a lot from Gizm, the kind of aesthetics. And Japan's a varied country. You got a lot of different sounds. You got that more like guitar worship, Guitar Hero kind of stuff of Lip Cream. You got Gustunk, which falls more in that kind of visual kai, a little bit of goth influence. Probably one of my favorite records coming out of Japan would be Dead Song, which takes a lot from hardcore, but really does have this like other kind of worldliness to it. Gaze, obviously one of my favorite bands. But Gizm really does have their own lane. And even though, as I mentioned, a lot of bands kind of take influence from them and copy some of their tropes, it's like nothing sounds like Gizm. Like the guitar work, the kind of noise pieces, the kind of like, there's like some elements of power electronics throughout it that just like, I don't feel like a lot of people were doing that at the time. A lot of industrial kind of stuff going on. He had his own kind of project called War, I believe. And that was much more of like soundscapes, power electronic experimentation, that kind of stuff. And you do get that on their second album, which is probably the newest release of Relapse. And I've shown this one off plenty of times. It's one of my favorite like unsung hero records until recently, but man, I would always recommend this to people, and that's Military's Affairs Neurotic. Just the three meaning corrupted, fatigue, degeneration, and destruction. Good as it is, probably my favorite on here is Nation's Prosperity. Just like such a great like riff, and the tempo switches on it and stuff are great. I feel like Sakevi's vocals are a lot more like straightforward, still pretty chaotic and psychotic and stuff. I definitely hear a lot of like black metal take from this. Not only do you have the over the top kind of power metal-y chords, which you could definitely hear in later bands of that ilk, maybe the first two kind of Dimmu Borgir records. You can definitely hear some of it in some early Emperor, more like Wrath of the Tyrant kind of stuff. I hear like that kind of gallop that they had on the guitar. I hear that in a lot of Akitsa, Moonblood, Blood definitely takes quite a bit from this band as well. Even though, like, I don't think any of that's, like, intentional. I'm not sure who was really into this band, but I definitely hear it. Um, just insanely great record. Um, and it's just this kind of aesthetic of, the crazy over the top power metal kind of riffs with Sakevi's like insane aggressive like schizophrenic vocals over it. So yeah, really happy to have this, and it's like cool that they have it in the like style that the original would come in. You don't have a back cover, you just have the record, and it's in kind of like a picture disc sleeve. But I like the aesthetic of it. He's got this kind of like X-ray medical stuff. There's a last album called Sonic Crime Therapy, which hopefully comes out. I don't really know the situation with that. I believe it was only available on CD most of the time. Maybe there was like a fan club bootleg of it on vinyl, but that one's really crazy. You got a lot of weird kind of stuff on that one. You got this kind of jazz improvisation at the beginning. It goes on for like 8 minutes of like just some jazz noodling on the bass with Sakevi just kind of groaning and making a bunch of fucking creepy ass noises over it. And then it kicks in. All the song titles are just like the initials of the band members. And it just fucking blasts of chaos and noise and the guitar tone they have on that. Like these kind of records, you have a more like cleaner kind of guitar tone, but the fuzz effect and all that kind of shit. I believe that was from like 2000, 2001. So it'd been a while since they had like an actual record come out. And man, it's just such a vicious, crunchy, like ear bleeding tone. And maybe they were listening to some other stuff coming out of Japan, like the kind of guy noise punk kind of stuff of the mid 80s, Confuse and those kind of bands, or even later on stuff like Disclose and Defector, that kind of all crusty spending loud night kind of sound. But still Gizm, and still sounds nothing like those bands in a way, because it's just that aggression, and they were always like one step ahead of everybody. Still are, like, even though, like I said, a lot of people take that influence, kind of run with it, especially over here in the States, like I said, bands like Poison Idea and all those kind of bands really latch on to Gizm and its kind of aesthetic and everything like that. But none of them touch it, none of them have that terror. And really, like, if you want to understand Gizm even better, as much as you can, definitely look into those live videos. I mean, they're all on YouTube. You can find them pretty simple. I remember seeing them, like, those are some of the first things I downloaded on SoulSeek when I first discovered that platform. And I'm pretty sure that's still up there. I haven't used it in forever, so I mean, it's amazing with everything else pretty much gone and Spotify taken over. SoulSeek was always that place you went to when you wanted to find like really crazy stuff you would never find. Some of it you couldn't even find on those little blog spot sites that I would go through back in the day. But yeah, the two videos that I always remember, I can't remember the name of these goddamn things. They always have these weird kind of, they almost look like catalog kind of titles, but they were put out by Beastarts, which is Sakevi's imprint, and really they were just like horrifying. And like bands like a lot of stuff coming out of Japan would really push the envelope pretty far. Merzbow, as far as like the kind of noise and the experiments he was doing. Obviously, with danger music, one of the big names that comes up all the time is Hannah Tarish driving a fucking bulldozer through the venue, like just insane shit like that. And Gizm kind of falls into that, but it's more of this like militaristic, very like kind of like I believe he might have been a mercenary. Like that would make the most sense because it is this kind of worship of death and destruction and war crimes, napalm, and all this other kind of stuff. Like other bands would like from Japan, like obviously they were front row seats to stuff like Nagasaki and Hiroshima, getting nuked. The only two nukes we've ever dropped in human history. Probably not the last. Let me just tell you, it's not looking good the last few years. Anyway, that's a topic I should not go into, but um, just fucking insane. Like how he was able to latch onto that, and a lot of these, Japanese bands would have that as a theme. The sound bites from I believe it's Threads. Those kind of quotes you would get from bands like Discharge and that kind of stuff. The enormous door slamming in the gates of hell and stuff like that. But like Gizm almost seemed to kind of revel in it and kind of like live in that this kind of like evil antichrist of war and plague and famine and all this kind of vibe. It was definitely overwhelming and intimidating, and they are definitely the kings of this like Japanese intensity. Like a lot of bands would come to the forefront, but man, you couldn't dethrone Gizm. The infamous image, I talked about this on my Instagram post. The image that always comes to mind is one of the live videos where they're playing Nervous Corpse, and he comes out in just full on military fatigue, wearing like a fucking balaclava. He's got the bandolier. He's wearing the iconic Dayu Bastards anarchy symbol with the fucking, I believe it's an AK-47. But, it's the iconic Gizm image. I wish I had that shirt now, because it would fit this video a lot better than this guy's shirt. But what can you do? Yeah, just seeing him come out and just look like a fucking crazy person, start shooting off flares and stuff. There's obviously like the blowtorch terror. I forget what the name of the video is, but it's him chasing like a bunch of audience members with like a homemade flamethrower. It's insane. Like this stuff is frightening. And behind them they have these giant projections of like Vietnam War footage and just people burning in napalm and just insane shit. Like this is like there's all that imagery as a kid that would like scare the living shit out of me, but also like I couldn't help but like be intrigued by it. Stuff like Threads or The Day After, or like that scene from Terminator 2 of everybody turning into this clay and blowing away in the wind, and this like nuclear kind of holocaust taking place. It's like, and a lot of that comes out in the music of Gizm. The kind of more power electronic ambient tracks on MAN do have that kind of like post-apocalyptic thermonuclear just extinction vibe to it. And I hate to say it, in this day and age, it's just as relevant as ever. The world's on fire. We're having these incredible heat waves, especially this week. We have this comeback of extreme heat. We had a couple of weeks at the end of August and, the first week of September, first couple of days of September where it was tolerable, and now it's just like we're getting killed by the humidity again. Earlier on this year we had the kind of smoke clouds coming up from that fire up in Canada. So yeah, you can really get a lot out of this band, and it's just ferocious. Like makes you uneasy, but man, you cannot deny how like it fuels that adrenaline, and it's just such a fascinating band with all the mystery and all the intrigue and like kind of mythos behind it. What is true, what is not true, like what's exaggerated. We only have mystery left over, and I don't think a lot of it's gonna come to complete light. For a long time I would hear interviews with people who knew guys from Japan or saw certain bands live, and they wouldn't talk about it. Japan has a tradition of not wanting to acknowledge the past, and especially this guy who's probably closely, aligned with like a criminal underworld. He's got kind of affiliations that may or may not be true. I don't know how to address that. There are people that I've known personally that have interacted with him. I'm pretty sure Jim Martin has probably met him on several occasions when he's over in Japan. Yeah, it is a big loss. With Randy being gone for a long time, it seemed very unlikely that we were going to have like a full-on kind of reemergence of the Gizm kind of brand, and then with him gone, it's tough. It's been really kind of affecting me. Even though I did not really know him personally by any stretch, I've never been over to Japan. I would have never met him, face to face. His image and kind of intensity and aesthetic and everything like that is never ceasing to amaze and intrigue and influence my own art. His use of collage work, he definitely did that kind of thing that people like G. Voucher with Crafts and Winston Smith with Dead Kennedys, and he would just put his own kind of nihilistic war fiend, anarchy and violence kind of theme to it. He was also a real big champion of a lot of the other stuff coming out of Japan. His zine Outsider was very, he had that LP compilation that came out with all the different artists on that, Alto and Execute, Laughing Nose, like different types of sounds coming out of Japan. There was so much variety, and they were taken from so many different places. Like you'd have entire scenes taken from the more Scandinavian, D-beat kind of sound, and then you had this like noisier kind of stuff, which is its own kind of beast, and really kind of, forefronted to stuff coming out later, like Noise Grind, like Fear of God and stuff like that. You wouldn't have a lot of that stuff without, first getting just the crazy shit from bands like Confuse and Execute and Kuro and all those kind of bands. It's crazy, man. It's just like insane. The kind of stuff that came out of this band's wake, and it's sad to see these guys go. Sympathy to anybody that was closely, um, you know, close to him. I don't know how much like that would be, because he does have that aesthetic of being kind of antisocial and kind of enigmatic, mysterious. A lot of it's the myth, like I keep saying, the exaggerated myth might put a little bit too much of a kind of weird cloud over it, but man, he changed a lot of people, and I am definitely one of them. So definitely a big cheers to Sakevi. Thank you. I forever grateful. And yeah, so if you got any thoughts on Sakevi, definitely put them down in the comments. Just an amazing body of work. Just, there's also a book of all of his different photography and artwork and collage stuff. I will get it eventually. It's just very expensive. I will put a link down in the description for you to go purchase that, though, because I do think it's a very cool piece to have. And yeah, it's like it's another loss, but at least we have the amazing body of work. And, with Relapse reissuing a lot of stuff and really digging into this kind of shit, there is an opportunity if they, maybe somebody else will, like digging into this other stuff that they were affiliated with, like the Rug 7-inch from Randy Uchida, the solo Sakevi kind of stuff, SKV, and the War material. Um, just very interesting output throughout, all the different art and video and collage and everything. This was definitely a multimedia kind of project, and really does do a lot of justice to this kind of, mantra I have about Japanese music being the most intense version of what they're doing in this genre, and just really pushing it forward, and just making everybody up their A game. It's really like giving people a kick in the ass. Like, how can I be more nihilistic and intimidating, terroristic, and everything like that? It's just such an important band to me, and I know so many more of you out there, it's been a very important band to you. So once again, R.I.P. Sakevi, forever grateful for your influence, and you will never, ever be replaced. If you want to find me on social media, I am on Instagram as the Hordes of Manzerfaust, and that will about do it. So my name is Mike Manzer. This has been another Manzerfaust Productions video. Stay fucking metal.